It's Friday the 5th of July, and we didn't get up very early because we stayed to watch the fall of some terrible people in our general election and have, I guess, a little hope of a new future, a little bit more commitment to sustainability, to net zero, and so on, but still far too weak. Anyway, enough of the politics. Let's look at what we've been doing today, which is more work on the guardrails. The first joint just needed a little bit of epoxy to fill that final gap between the joint and the stanchion, because we uh, assembled it off the stanchion, and so that needed to be glued on. We've now finished building this joint, and once it's cured, we can grind the corners to nicely round them, and then both of those are ready to be wrapped in glass fibre tape. We've then fitted both the braces for the push pit on this side and on that side. We've epoxied them into the FR4 deck fittings that we made, and then it's an experiment. We've kind of done a lashing in glass fibre tape, filled the joint with some thickened epoxy first, glass fibre tape around the outside, and we'll see how that holds. If that's holding it firm, then I can undo the zip ties at the top, and I can do a similar joint there probably. So they're both zip tied exactly the right height, and as soon as this is all cured, tomorrow probably we'll be able to do the joint there. Good morning, it's Wednesday 10th of July and I'm trying to pretend it isn't raining, and it isn't going to rain, but it doesn't look very nice. Anyway, today we didn't do any work on the boats. Jane had to go to work and I went on a road trip, and I've got a new to us, nearly new and never used Hebridean wind vane self-steering. So we'll put some video of that up. We start to get it installed in a little while. Meanwhile, on Sunday, we managed to get our first guardrail line on. Jane's done at Dyneema, locking Brummel splices. This is onto a thimble at this end where we're tensioning it, and at the aft end, at the moment, while it's being stretched here, I've just got it looped over the gate. I'm going to actually cow hitch it onto there, but I didn't want to get the splice tangled up in the cow hitch until it had been stretched. So that is feeling really nice and secure. Temporarily just use some very light twine to hold it up on the stanchion. Next job's still got to do the fiberglass tape around here, but we've fitted our first rail support for the solar panels. So that's on. I've done a little bit of sanding to smooth it. Again, it's going to be wrapped with fiberglass tape, and then we'll Dremel out the hole again from that. And I'm just using up scraps of FR4 that we'd originally intended to be thimbles for the rigging. That one will sit there so that the rail drops into it, and then get a little light line lashing it so it can't fall out. Just find the rail. Here's the rail for there. Just slots into that circle, and it's a nice snug fit into there. Goes to that pencil mark, which means it's level. That will sit supported by that U shape. Got to be fastened on with thickened epoxy, and then we're going to repeat the same for the rail on this side. We hole at this end and a U at that end. and that's slightly shorter. It's just longer than the solar panel, so we're using a thinner diameter tube compared to this one. And the panels are going to be attached to this in such a way that they can just swivel up, and we've sorted out what we think is a cool way to support them up at any angle. So we'll actually have the angle fully adjustable. When we're heeling down, port side down, we'll be able to raise it above the horizontal to the boat to be still horizontal and clearing waves. That's where we're at the moment, getting these next ones on, getting that rail on, getting the solar panels fitted. Meanwhile, while I'm doing that, Jane is below doing some more splicing for the guardrails. I'm going to have to order some more of the thimbles because we ended up using them for the boat cradle. But the world's greatest Dyneema splicer is currently in action. That's our update for Wednesday morning. If you could look really closely over there, there's some blue sky. But at the moment, it's drizzling in. Okay, this is going to be the forward end of the aft solar rail on the port side. As you can see, it's a scrap left over. I'm going to put a hole about there and then shape it a little bit with the grinder cutting disc, and by the time I've done so, you won't know it was a scrap piece. Okay, I'll get this hole drilled. Okay, I have my hole, and I'm just going to slice down that corner of this triangle off with the grinder and cut it a little bit shorter as well, so it'll be nearly rectangular. By the time I've rounded the corners using the flapper disc on the grinder, it'll look like a reasonably good shape. And remember, it's going to be hidden anyway underneath some fiberglass tape, so we'll glue it on with the thickened epoxy, sand those edges smooth, get it looking nice and even, and then we'll be wrapping it with fiberglass tape. Okay, time to cut. And there we go, that's cut to shape. And there we have it. That can be finally rounded off once it's in place and all the gaps behind it have been filled with thickened epoxy. Then it all needs sanding again, and at that point with the finger belt sander I can make sure it looks nice and even. So at this point I completely agree, this does not look at all pretty, but there is thickened epoxy right the way around those joints, tiny bit of hot glue to hold them in place at the bottom while the epoxy cures, and then that will sand up nicely. No doubt there'll be a bit more filling before we do the glass fibre tape wrap. That's the aft end of the forward solar panel, that's the forward end of the aft panel, and then this is the aft end of the aft panel. We have checked with the tubes all fit in and the alignment is good. So now we just wait for those to cure. Then I can take the belt sander, the finger belt sander, maybe even the flapper disc on the grinder, and get those looking smooth, which you can see on this one that just with a quick go it's looking a lot better than it used to, and a little bit more slightly thinner thickened epoxy, and then as that's getting slightly cured we'll do the wrap with the glass fibre tape. We have moved our ladder to our new gate on the port side, and now we can take apart the original gate on the starboard side. The first leg came off really easily, the bolts were barely more than finger tight. The second one, the bolts came off fine, but we couldn't knock them through, and now as I'm taking it out, all this black water has run out all the way down the scupper. It's absolutely disgusting. So this might explain why we were getting lots of leaks onto our chart table originally, because clearly something's very wrong.
I think whatever they put in to stop the leaks is stopping the bolts coming out. They didn't stop the leaks though, so totally ineffective.
Ah, there we go.
Ah. Yes. Okay. Oh. Lovely. Not.
It's all coming down
Well,
the inside of the stanchion, I guess.
somebody's been using our old stanchions. I don't know if they want those. It's only the bases they've been using.
Yes, we've been passing on the bases to be used by somebody else.
We'll see if they want those. Oh well.
We're definitely cutting away old leaks, which is very good.
And we're going to take the track off as well, aren't we?
We'll take the track off next.
Hooray.
Hopefully that comes off. That is definitely been very wet under there
Where is it
for a
then?
long, long time. There's supposed to be a drain there, but obviously it wasn't draining.
It's probably blocked.
Okay, nice to get old bits off your boat.
Even if it is raining at the moment, so maybe not the best time
It's
to be making
lovely.
holes in the deck.
Lovely. Right. I don't know how much sound we picked up from the last bit, but where the bright pink tape is, that's covering up where our genoa track used to be. That's all come off, and the other 4 dabs are the 2 gate stanchions and the 2 gate braces. So that's all the last remaining old stanchions and genoa track off. So the only original thing that we have is the pulpit, and the good thing about the pulpit is all the bolts go into the deck locker, which drains overboard, so we don't have to worry about that leaking as we did all of these. As with the track on the port side, we had to cut it to get it off, but all done. Very pleased with that. We can now fit carbon fibre stanchions and braces and get the rest of the guardrails finished. Hi, good morning. It's Thursday the 11th of July and I'm on my own. Jane had to go back for work today, hopefully back later tonight. So before I get stuck into showing you what we've done and what we're about to do, I just wanted to mention that there is an Operation Cruiser's Aid, which is sailing cruisers around the Caribbean who are collecting goods and money for those goods and then taking them to the islands that have been hit by Hurricane Beryl. I'll put a link in the description. If you're able to support them, this is fantastic work, and it's very much what I had in mind when I said to the Methodist Church that I wanted the 5 years that I'm taking to sail about the world to be good news for the communities that we visit. So if you're able to support, fantastic. Okay, back to getting the boat ready so that we can be good news. The work we did yesterday, despite it being quite damp, we've got the supports, and now I've got the 2 first rails dry fitted. So these rails are what the solar panels are going to hang from, and that's all sorted how that's going to work. Just got to do it. I am going to, like we are with all our carbon fibre tubes, fill these with a lightweight thickened epoxy just to add a little bit more rigidity to them, stop them bending so much. But that's good news. Next job is I'm just going to sand the joints a little bit just to make them a little bit neater before we get round to putting the glass fibre tape on, which I'll probably do when Jane's around. It's easier with 2 of us. And then the next job today is where the blobs of orange tape to fit the stanchion bases for our carbon fibre stanchions, and where the long strip of tape is to fill the holes from the bolts for the old Genoa truck. At least that's what I think I'm going to do. Fortunately, despite the weather forecast, it does seem to be drying up today and even promises to stay dry all day. Just no sun. Anyway, to work. Okay, let's get this done. Okay, so by no means finished yet. We will be putting some thickened epoxy and the glass fibre tape around that, and then we'll put some epoxy onto the glass fibre tape to fill the weave before we paint it. But I've already, didn't catch on camera, just used the Dremel to clean out the actual U's and circles so that the tubes fit in neatly. Forward of the 2 tubes is a slightly larger diameter because we've gone with the original stanchion spacing, which is much longer than we need for the solar panel, so we went for a larger diameter tube, same as the stanchions, whereas the aft one is what we'd originally intended, and that's pretty much the right length for the actual panel because we put that extra stanchion in. That's already pretty nice and rigid, but once we've filled these they won't bend for anything like as much. Okay, I think we'll move on to the side deck now. I need to widen, sort of turn the holes that are in the deck from the bolt holes into hourglass shapes, so that when I fill them with thickened epoxy, it can't be popped up or down. So a bit of hole drilling next. Do you think ripping off tape is like ripping off band-aid for boats? Ugh, take it off quick. It did keep some of the water out. I've had towels underneath to collect it. We're not reusing the old brace positions because our braces are quite a lot longer, and so those just need filling with thickened epoxy, as do all these holes. These holes are going to get filled, but I'll do that as I put the hole for the stanchion base. So for the moment, just the ones I'm going to fill, I'm just going to countersink out. At this point, we're not interested in getting a great deck finish. The whole deck is going to be completely redone. So all we're trying to do here is get them sealed so that we don't get any water ingress. And our decks are not cored, so we don't have to worry about any balsa or anything having gone rotten. Here, there is timber in there, so that's why we'll drill those out a bit bigger. The ones at the very end, which held the stop blocks for the track, were only screws. They didn't go all the way through. Right, let's get the vacuum cleaner. Where's the vacuum cleaner? I'll be back in a moment. Okay, now I'm going to just drill out the holes where there's timber in the deck. So these ones for the braces, these ones for the shroud themselves, just so I can check that I'm getting to dry timber. So I want a bit that's a lot bigger than what's there, so that we're sure we get back to something dry. And you can see that's all dry stuff coming out of there, which is great. Again, all dry dirt, so that's dirt core, so that's great. In fact, it looks like it might be solid fiberglass, which seems odd. As I'd expect, looks like it's got quite a bit of wet in there, but when you look down the hole, we've taken all the wet out. Again, inside that hole is now clean and dry. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's timber. I wonder what it was, because it's not going to be layers and layers and layers of fiberglass. Some kind of composite material. What did they use in 1977? Not sure. Right, I don't need anything like as big, just to take these ones and check that I've got dry there. Okay, change of colour shows. Oh, that's got timber in it. Right, let's just get that backed up. Just going to use the flapper disc on the grinder just to get rid of the dirt around each hole, so I get a clean surface to get the epoxy to stick to. And today's going to be painful. No Jane to help mix the epoxy. I don't like doing things that have to be really precise. That's why Jane tends to do the accurate measuring for the epoxy while I slap it on. Okay, so I'm getting ready to drill the holes for the stanchion bases. We're putting these stubs in, which are one size smaller diameter than the actual stanchions. We've got these FR4 bases, you've seen us make those with the edges routed and the underneath of the hole routed, so that we get a 3D connection of epoxy glue. So that goes on there. That is a 27mm force and a bit hole through there. What we want to put through the deck is a 32mm hole, so that again we get more thickened epoxy, we get some space to adjust this to be absolutely vertical. So what I do is get this where I want it, start the drilling with the 27 just so I can see the centre, and then drill right the way through with 32. I've got a bucket underneath to catch the shavings, and we're just going to drill those two holes, and then I've got to do the countersinking on the underside of all these, just so again it's an hourglass shape for the thickened epoxy to hold. Once I've done that and dried it all, acetoned it all, I can mix a whole bunch of thickened epoxy and do all of this in one go. Oh, I've also got to tape the undersides so that it doesn't, the epoxy doesn't leak through. Right, let's get on and do the marking with the Forstner bit. Do so before Jane rings me in her lunchtime to say hello, see how I'm doing. Despite the forecast, it does keep giving showers, which is a bit frustrating because I really want it dry for doing this. It just runs, water runs all the way down the side of the side deck and comes across into these holes, particularly here where the deck's quite flat. Right. Okay, that gives me the centre point for the bigger hole. Interesting to see, if you watch the Duracell project, how their stanchions are very, very similar, except they're using a solid glass fibre tube rather than a carbon fibre tube filled with thickened epoxy. Okay, 32-bit. 32mm bit. One of the good things about over drilling is we can be sure of getting the epoxy to seal around the edges, but also I don't have to be quite so precise in drilling the hole in terms of making it vertical, because we can correct that once the post stub is in place. Okay, that's Jane ringing me. Okay, caught up with the boss, so she's good, just having a lunch break, and we'll be back here tonight. So let's see how much progress we can get done. Okay, I'm going to go down below and start cleaning up, countersinking and blocking up the holes ready to fill. Okay, so I have a new fresh cup of coffee and very nice Ethiopian yigachuf, whatever the correct pronunciation is, thanks to Tank Coffee. Made with the AeroPress as always. And onto the underside of the deck. This is the original chart table. It is the area that had the most water damage when we bought the boat onto this bulkhead, and it was coming from the original window here, it was coming from the derayed vent there, it was coming from instruments there, and it was coming from all these holes which were the original bolts for the track. These were all those things were hidden behind the vinyl headlining, and in some cases a plywood backing for that. So we know those bolts had never been tightened in 47 years, never seen in 47 years. And in fact, some of them, like the one here, were covered with a head of fiberglass, which meant even if you took the headlining off, you still couldn't get to the bolt. This the chart table itself just had pools of water on it when we bought the boat, and the guy, previous owner, was using nappies to try to absorb the water. Okay, I've got all underneath blocked up. The PVT tape was useless, so I've got some of that, but it had to be held up with duct tape and masking tape, but I've got some solid FR4 under the big holes Now to go and mix some resin. Time for me to mix the resin. So I've got my gloves, I've got the lollipop sticks. The resin we are still using, been using all the time, an eco resin from Professional Epoxy Coatings, which is supposed to be less environmentally destructive in terms of what it's made from. Got the hardener, which is a slow multi-purpose hardener. We tend to use that all the time to give us more working time. And we always do our epoxy by weight rather than by volume. We found pumps very tricky, and as we get through more and more bottles, they don't last that long. So scales are easier to get accurate and very convenient. We're not mixing kilos and kilos at a time anyway. For the structural stuff, we want to be using the microfibers, but for the places where I want it to flow into smaller holes, the microspheres, glass bubbles, just flow that much easier. So I'm going to do a mixture to start with of a little bit of each. Fill the small screw holes in the deck, so I'm confident that while it's as strong as possible, it will flow into all the crevices there. And then I'll thicken it up a bit further to put sort of peanut butter texture for the main bonding of the carbon fibre stubs. And I didn't show, but I've put holes into these. I find Dremel works much better than a drill. It doesn't splinter the carbon fibre as much. So those are drilled so that when they go in there, we get a epoxy bond from the inside to the outside. Again, it's kind of making it a 3D glue connection to make it stronger. I think I'm all ready to go. I've got my mask, which I'll use when I'm putting the filler in, because those fillers are so fine they can easily get in your lungs. But as I'm sitting here, the wind's blowing towards the camera anyway, so nothing's going to hopefully be flying up in my face as we go. We keep the resin on a food warmer in the cabin, otherwise it does tend to go to jelly. But as you can see, that's nicely liquid at the moment. I'm going to mix, how much am I going to mix? I think I'm going to start with 100 grams of resin and 50 grams of hardener. And we almost always use yoghurt pots. It's very sad, we have to eat lots of yoghurt. Okay. Don't forget your gloves, Dave. And disadvantage of doing it outside is the wind affects the scales a bit, but that's 102.5. Zero it. 102.5 makes this 51. We then want to do about 90 seconds of mixing and then let the bubbles disappear for a few seconds before adding the thickener. This latest resin from Professional Epoxy Coatings is a sort of purple colour. Hasn't always been so strongly coloured, so I guess they've changed something about the formula. But it does make it nice and easy to see that the clear or slightly whitish activator hardener has mixed in properly. Try to make sure we scrape all the way around the edge in case any of the resin or hardener gets stuck, separated. Okay, so that's mixed, and because it's the slow hardener and it's not that warm a day, it's about 12, 13 degrees out here, I've got no rush. So I can leave that stand for a little while before I add the thickener, and you can see the bubbles coming to the surface and popping. I'll add the microfibers first, and then just a few of the glass bubbles. So time to get the mask on. You can see that cloud coming off there is exactly why you want to be wearing a mask when you're doing this. It's really not good for your lungs. Okay, that just makes it a little bit smoother. Did do it slightly thicker than I intended. Gravity is on my side. And I've got one little place just forward there where I found something that wasn't quite nicely filled, so I'm just going to put some into there, just trying to this out. And then, so yeah, I don't know if you could hear me. I've got one place just there where we filled something in the past and didn't fill it quite full. I'm just going to put a little dab in just so it doesn't collect water. It has been sanded out and it has been wiped with acetone, so that will just fill that so it doesn't collect water. Okay. These are never ever going to leak again. I'll just get myself a screw in a minute and just poke down into those just to make sure that I have sunk all the way in. It's particularly as I say, this is a little bit thicker than I was aiming for. So it doesn't flow quite as well into the holes. Just getting the level. Big advantage of doing this on a day when it isn't sunny. It's an awful lot easier to read this level. 89.65. That's accurate enough for us. 89.55. Two stanchion bases for the port starboard gate fitted. So I'm let them cure a bit, and then when I'm confident I won't knock them out of alignment, I will fill these with slightly runnier thickened epoxy so I can pour it in, and then the stanchions themselves, which are here, will also just drop onto there, put some thickened epoxy in the end here, drop them onto there so that it oozes all the way down, and then these two will be topped up with thickened epoxy, and for that we use the microspheres, partly because they're lighter, but also they just flow better, so we can be more confident that if we put it in the top of the tube it flows all the way down and fills it completely. So that, given the cure times, and it's 3:30, might be tomorrow that I'll do those. Right, let's go and find something else. Probably another cup of coffee. Hi, it's still Thursday, still the 11th of July, and I kind of feel I'm on a roll today, and the weather is so much better than was originally forecast. It's due to be dry now for the next 24 hours. So I'm going to mix the thickened epoxy to pour into the stanchions for the gate. That means that I'll get a nice chemical bond to the epoxy that's holding the stub in place, which is always better than purely relying on a glue bond, mechanical bond. That's right, chemical is much better than just mechanical. So I've just rechecked, and they are absolutely so vertical, it's brilliant. They're given the fact the boat is only as level as we can get it, it's pretty good now, but these are almost exactly but vertical. So I'm going to do a mixture this time. It'll be mostly the glass bubbles, microspheres, with some microfiber just to thicken it up a little bit, especially at the beginning. The microfibers, the micro balloons tend to run through tiniest gaps, and I don't really want it all running out the bottom. Okay, I'm going to mix up 300 grams, and then I'll turn the camera back on when I'm pouring it in. Well, might as well leave the camera running. It can go on time lapse, can't it? How exciting. Okay, working out. That is done for tonight. Those will be nice and cured by the morning, and then we can put the braces on, and that will allow us to fit the little supports for the solar panels right the way along this side. The other port side's already complete, and that means that as soon as we bring the other 3 of these solar panels to the boat, we can put them straight up. Fantastic. And it also means we've got all the line, Dyneema and catches and so on to make the rest of the guardrails. We're still not quite sure how we're going to do across the gates. We've got some pelican hooks that are supposed to make them quick release, but what we hook them to haven't yet fully decided. So watch this space. Hi, it's late on Thursday, the 11th of July. This is going to be the end of the current video, but I want to give you a foretaste of what's coming. We are going to be fitting our first solar panel. I'm just making the brackets now for that to go on that rail there. We've got sorted as well how we're going to do the tilting, but the key thing is we've been working at it for years. We're going to have our first solar panel up by later this evening. Watch the next video to see what it looks like. Thanks for watching. Thanks to all the new subscribers, love having you, and thanks for all the comments and likes. It's great to see the channel growing. Bye.